virtual machine backup for VMware and also Hyper-V. So now we move on to agents. Now, if you do have some machine, for example, physical machine or a public cloud machine, there's no supported environment like VMware or Hyper-V, then Veeam will be utilizing agent to make a backup. Okay, so if you are using some on-prem SAN virtual machines such as Citrix SAN Server, KVM-based kind of virtualization, then you need to also utilize this agent to do a backup. Or you have some legacy older physical hardware, desktop and laptops, all these can be protected using agent, either running on Windows or Linux operating system, as you can see here. Okay, so we do have Veeam agent for Solaris and AIX platform. And in version 11, we also add in new support for Mac machine. So if you have some Mac desktop or laptop, okay, we can install Veeam agent over there to help you protect the data locally. Okay, so these are the few supported platform, and we are using agent software here to offer backup function only. So if you're looking on the Veeam replication can only support it for VMware and also Hyper-V virtual machine for the current Veeam. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let me see some question here. Okay, please respond to Michelle's message. If you are online, then we need to check who you are, at least from which company. Okay, so Veeam agent for Microsoft Windows. Now this is supported long ago in version 11. Okay, version 11 now we support a new feature here. Okay, a new feature here only in V11, yeah. So V11 here with storage snapshot support, okay, for your server host. Now, if your physical server is running data disk from a SAN storage, for example, okay. So this is either FC or iSCSI SAN LAN, for example, okay. And these are the supported storage system, either NetApp, HPE, Dell EMC, etc. There's a list of storage support from Veeam documentation. Now, when I am utilizing agent backup, you will see that over here, I will utilize agent. Okay, this is local disk, for example. Okay, local disk. I will be using agent to cover this backup. Okay, then if you add on the storage system into the Veeam backup software, okay, then I will be utilizing the storage snapshot here. Now, this support is quite similar to VMware storage integration function, okay, whereby when I'm trying to back up this data disk, Veeam will also call up to the storage system to create additional snapshot. And then I will be using the snapshot instead to perform my backup data here. So I will not be running agent types of backup on the server host, for example. So we are now running on the SAN network here, okay? Running on SAN network. So it's either FC or iSCSI. Now we require one additional backup proxy here, okay, to be able to support this particular role. Now the backup proxy need to be same operating system or higher, okay, similar to your physical server host here. This function only supports for Windows environment. Okay, so if you're using FC, then we need to have a physical backup proxy additionally. If you're using iSCSI, then a virtual backup proxy can able to get the job done. So you will see that this particular machine is having two types of backup running. One is agent, which is the software running on the local machine that will handle your operating system local disk backup to the repository. Now, majority of the data will be coming from the data disk usually that is now supported by another storage system. And happens that this is a supported equipment that can be added on to Vim backup software, for example. Then I can utilize this storage integration option to help me create another storage snapshot backup. So if you look into Vim storage integration vendor, okay, so this list of vendor is similar to VMware. Okay, similar to VMware integration, as you can see here. So they have another Vim agent integration here. Okay, so that you will see using Vim agent for Windows, we do support this list of storage system. Okay, so it's similar to VMware storage integration snapshot function. Yeah. Okay. I'll give you the link so you can read through over there. So this is V11 new function. Yeah. Okay, so over here works only for Windows Server and Fieldwork cluster managed by server that require proxy with the same OS or above. Okay, no support for VM in the VMware RDM based disk. Okay, so this is a bit different, mainly designed for maybe physical environment, etc. Okay, so backup personal files can see here in version 11. Okay, agent backup also adding additional support here to filter what kinds of folder that you want to include into the backup. Okay, so from here you will see, although I do select personal user account data, but inside the user account, there are certain folders that you do not want to include into your backup because the particular repository space is very limited. Then maybe it's a good idea not to include music or videos. There's not business important data. So some things like this. Okay. So I can now add on additional support here using V11 product. Earlier, we do not have this filter. Okay, so this is additional support here. Then another thing for your agent backup job retention, we have this additional restore point option here. Okay, so the restore point here is added on additionally to the restore days. Okay. If we are running on hourly backup, then the restore point might come into handy sometimes. Okay. For example, I just want to keep like maybe hourly backup for 1 or 2 days. Then you can set it to 24 restore point or 40 restore point, and it will help you to actually do data merging using forever for incremental and things like this. Okay. So this gives you additional options for you to adjust your retention policy. As compared to the earlier one, we have only numbers of days of backup to keep. Okay, so this additional support here. Okay, so all these are new to V11, and Vim agent for Linux also come with some V11 newly added feature. So first thing will be the recovery media. Okay, so if you do have a backup for Linux machine using agent, when we are doing restoration similar to Windows, we will need to create the recovery media. Now the recovery media for Linux agent now do have some upgrade. In version 11, we actually run latest based on Debian Live ISO. That's why better hardware support. And from this Live ISO, we do support LUKS or LUKS2 encryption based volume. If you have planned to use that, even in your new restored machine, you can pre-configure this volume or utilizing logical volume manager LVM. Okay, so these are the additional support before your machine is ready to pull the data and write it back into the machine itself. Okay. And another additional support here using Network Manager TUI. Okay, so NM2 will be the particular graphical user interface kinds of setup for your network itself is supported. Okay, so SSH is by default started using this live ISO. So with all this preparation done, we need to define the connectivity to your backup server to see what backup they want to restore back to this particular Linux machine. So this is additional v11 support now. So in the exam, maybe they will ask you some questions such as like Vim agent for Linux restoration. Do we support LUKS or LUKS2, or do we support advanced LVM or not, things like this. Okay, so this will be some of the info that you need to be careful on it. So those are also new to v11 only. Then agent for Mac is now supported starting from version 11. Okay, so you will see Windows and Linux, we can back up the entire machine, including operating system, partition, everything. So we can basically restore to bare metal machine with OS altogether. Now, agent for Mac is a bit different. When we have this Vim agent for Mac, it's designed only to back up files and folders. Okay. Now, Mac machine come with their own recovery software. If not mistaken, it should be Time Machine. Now, that recovery software is doing pretty good job already. If you have any issue to your Mac machine, you can always use that reset button. Now, Vim here will give you a value-added function where they will offer helping you to back up the files and folders running inside the Mac machine only. And the user can easily locate and restore on their own. So you will see here, receive color text, specific files, folders, send back up to Vim, repository component, etc. And then provide basic UI for file level recovery to the end user. So after you have any issue to the Mac, we can do reset for the OS to refresh everything, just like your phone, etc. Then we can install the Vim agent software again to pull the data back to the machine, for example. Okay. Okay, Desianto, let me double check. As you can see here, Linux. You will see now, yeah. Okay, so what are the agent do we support here? You will see the agent for Linux, first thing. Okay. And then Vim agent for Unix, Solaris and AIX. So I'm not sure whether your Linux on Power IBM is coming from Linux or Solaris or not. Okay, or sorry, AIX. So if you want to check, you can always check from Vim support website here. Okay, so for Vim agent for Linux compatibility. Okay, so you will see a list of requirements here for the new Linux agent support. So from here, you will see we do able to support Debian, Ubuntu, Oracle, or this flavor. Okay, so I'm not sure your IBM machine, which kinds of operating system that they are running. Okay, I'm no IBM expert here. Okay, so you can double check from the Vim documentation actually. Okay. So maybe the machine is IBM, Linux on Power, maybe they are running based on certain distribution, for example. Okay. Maybe they are actually a modified versions of CentOS or maybe Ubuntu. Okay. So I'm not sure on that. You maybe need to check it out first. Okay. So another one will be IBM, will be AIX. We do support it, okay, for AIX. So those are considered Unix environment, so-called. Okay. So Mac machines, you can see here, we can back up user accounts, data, or if you have some custom selection. Okay. So for example, you have some special folder that comes with the data that you need. You can also select them using custom selection if you want to. Okay. Now the backup will be utilizing Apple file system snapshot. Okay. APFS snapshot itself to make sure the data is consistent before I back up the data set. So this will be rather easy if you are actually looking for any backup solution to support for Mac data protection, for example. So Vim come with this support altogether. So if you're using Vim, this is additional support too if you have version 11 update. Okay. So you see here, this is one of the local UI offered to the end user or administrator. Okay, so the end user can bring up the UI software on their Mac machine after the Vim agent is installed, and also backup is already been created. So you'll see here, from the file level restore option, I can select which restore point to open up and check on the data here, as you can see. So from the files and folders, I can then select to copy or restore either to all the original location or not. Okay, so this is one of the easy restore option because we are looking onto your file level restore only here. Okay. Now, for agent to connect to backup server, we have three different options here. Now, for Mac machine, okay, for Mac machine, it will be utilizing the second option usually, okay, or the first option if you prefer to use command in Mac, they do have it under terminal. So this is another way to connect to your backup server. Now, if you're using Windows or Linux, okay, Windows or Linux, you can actually connect from agent to VBR, as you can see here, or using VBR, backup software server, to push the connectivity to the client machine. Okay, so it's actually two options now altogether. Okay, so this is one of the way. Later I will show you where does the config XML file comes from. Okay, all this can be generated from your Vim backup software action. Okay, so if you are using Mac machine, then you need to utilize this option to import the configuration file that you copy into the machine itself. Okay, so it's basically the same thing by running the command itself. So if you prefer to use command, you can do something like this. If you prefer to use this GUI, you can do this. Okay. So later they will have some guides to show you how to prepare that. Okay. So those are all for version 11 new features support especially. Then now we look into the actual deployment for agent. Now agent is a bit different here as compared to the virtual machine backup that you have earlier. Just now before lunch, you perform your lab session to create your jobs or a virtual machine, right? Now, do you need to install anything to your virtual machine? You don't need to, because why? We are running virtual machine backup on the VMware ESXi or Hyper-V level. So your virtual machine operating system generally do not require anything internally before I can prepare the machine or backup the machine. Now, agent perspective is a bit different. Agent usually we will look into machine that has no access from the top layer, and because it's a physical machine, you do not really have ESXi machine, all these things to manage them, or your particular virtualization environment such as Citrix Sand Server is not a supported Vim environment. Then we need to tackle the machine operating system level data access by using agent software. That's why before this can be done, we need to first cover how the agent software can be prepared and installed into these individual machines. So we will usually create protection group in a backup server to help us maintain the machine agent software. So the protection group, we can utilize static option that can add in individual PC by either host name or IP address. Now, if you have a few machine, a handfuls of machine that requires agent management, we can usually go with individual PC. Okay? Now, if you have more than a few, maybe 10, 20, or even hundreds of machines that you are planning to back up using agents such as workstation or laptops in a domain environment, then we should go with dynamic. Okay, so using dynamic, we can utilize Active Directory domain controller object. So these are all the group object that is available that can tackle, maybe select the entire organizational unit, OU. Inside the OU is just like a folder that comes with a list of virtual machine, workstation, laptops, or even server, either physical or virtual. Then from there, I can contact them via the host name detected from the domain controller to perform some remote management to the machine, such as agent installation push or agent communication, etc. Okay, so dynamic is another way to go if you are planning to back up workstation laptop in one particular environment. Then you have this additional exclusion. If you select the grouping, for example, okay, I can also exclude machine that is not required to install with agent. So not necessarily the entire OUs of machine you plan to protect. So here you can utilize additional exclusion tool to remove all those objects itself. Now by default, you will see virtual machine will be selected as exclude item here, as you can see here. Now, because if it is a supported virtual environment such as VMware or Hyper-V, we are supposed to use image level backup. Okay, due to certain restrictions such as maybe you're utilizing some, for example, failover cluster technology on the VM such as Microsoft SQL always on, maybe you require to use agent to do a backup because they are not able to support shared VMBK, virtual machine snapshot, for example. Okay, or you're utilizing some DG cluster that we also mentioned that require maybe this agent backup to help you protect the data. Okay, so over here you will see from the protection group, after selecting which agent, which object that we plan to manage the agent with, this is where we can configure our schedule. So when do you want to perform a rescan to this particular object or group? To make sure the machine comes with the available agent software, etc. So if the machine is a new one, detected from the OU, maybe you join a few machine today to the domain because you have new staff joining in, buy new machine, etc. Then you can tell Vim what to do. So the next thing here will be distribution server. So distribution server is the one who help you push the agent software to install remotely. Now, one agent software usually need about 100 megabyte in size. If you have a lot of machine required to install agent, especially from a different site connected via WANing, we need to define and choose another Windows machine on the local area network to perform these tasks so that they can push all this software from the LAN connectivity point of view. Then you can choose to install agent automatically or not. So if you choose install automatically, when they detect the machine has no agent, they'll help you to install straight away. And then if you are running on Windows machine, you can also install changelog tracking driver, and reboot can be automated or manual. So usually for server, we will choose manual instead. Things like this. Okay. So this is the traditional ways of agent management. Okay, and agent deployment. So this one is supported since like a few versions ago. Okay. Okay, so next thing you will see here, we have a newer one in V11 here called Catch-all Protection Group. So Catch-all Protection Group here will be utilizing a different methods of doing things. For example, earlier we always use a push method to install the agent software into the machine, and some environment, the security team does not like the admin share to be opened up in Windows environment or SSH even. Now, if you have some security concern on a machine like this, you might need to perform manual installations of agent on the local machine before they actually establish connectivity back to the backup server. So this will give Vim additional options here called the Catch-all Protection Group, whereby you are just creating a protection group to stand by on the backup server to wait for any agent that tries to communicate with it. So you will see here, we export the agent configuration certificate and also the installer file. And then we copy it to the local machine and perform local installation. And then after that, the agent will try to connect to the backup server instead, the other way around. Okay. So from here, you will see this is the option for to export your installer and configuration file. So this is my V11 environment too. Okay, so if I go to inventory under physical infrastructure here, so if I click on create protection group, okay, so you will see type here, they have another newer one here called computer with pre-installed agents. So this is what we call the catch-all protection group. Okay, catch-all protection group. So when you select this option, you will see configuration on the left will be lesser because this is passive configuration. So when I choose this, you will see that next thing they will offer you packages. So from here, you will see a lot of different packages for Microsoft, Apple, and also Linux distribution. So you will see I have different versions of support for Debian, for Ubuntu, Red Hat, CentOS, Oracle, etc. Okay. So after I selected one of the distribution in the environment that you're using, then I can select the export path on the local machine. So they will export the installer file and also the configuration file to that folder, and you can copy it to the remote machine to perform local installation. So after this protection group is created, there will be another line item here waiting for the machine to connect to the backup server, for example. Okay. So this is one of the way. Then you will see that after export it out, the file looks like this. Okay, so we see here, I selected D drive to export my package. So you see I have a CentOS 8 distribution. Then here I have Linux. So I will have a few files here. One is the installer folder that comes with a few package. Then you have your XML configuration file. And they also come with README file here to tell you what you need to do. For example, if I open up the README file, now they will give you installation steps, command to run based on different operating system. Now, if you're using Ubuntu, usually I will use apt. CentOS, maybe I'll use yum, for example, things like this. So these are a few commands. So you will see that over here, this actually give you a step-by-step guide on what you need to do after installation and what is the configuration file that you need to import into the machine. So where does the configuration file comes from? It's basically from the export package here, as you can see. So when I right click here, edit. Okay, so you will see from this Word document, I have some sort of like certificate information. Then the last line here, you will see I have server name. I have the IP, port number. Okay. So this will tell the agent software who is your backup server that you need to connect. And then they will establish connectivity from the agent to the backup server instead to add into the protection group. And then later I can create backup job utilizing agent that is pre-installed. That's why they say pre-installed agent or catch-all protection group. Okay. So this will be the XML file that you need to copy and then import to the local machine. So you will see that the package comes with a few software required usually. Okay. So this is Linux. So you can exploit out later in your lab for Mac or Windows to see what are the data content inside. Okay. So in your lab later, they don't really show you how to configure this. So I give you some demo, give you some idea where you can look for it. Later, you can do some exploration yourself in the lab environment. Okay. So next thing, as I mentioned, if you are doing agent installation or management, we will usually require this distribution server. If you are performing backup server to agent connectivity direction. Okay, so the catch-all type is the other way around. Okay, distribution server will be the one who send the agent software package to each of the machine. Okay, so they are not using multicast types of connectivity, they're using unicast. So it will require a lot of data sending over to all these remote machine from the distribution server. That's why it is not a good idea to send all this traffic via vending. So we tend to have one middleman or appointed machine has distribution to perform local distribution options. Now in version 11, okay, we have these newly added options to remove object inside your protection group. So inside protection group, maybe it is detected with 100 machine and you already installed agent to it. And then for some reason, maybe some of the machine actually having some physical issue, etc. And they are not actually restored as the same machine again. And maybe from AD point of view is considered a different identity. Then you will see some item here maybe offering. So offering item here, host name is different, IP may be different. Vim will have no connectivity to them anymore now. Older version, if you have machine like this, you are basically stuck because why? When you try to delete the agent, Vim will try to remove or uninstall the agent software. If they are not able to uninstall the agent software, then you're stuck. So this happens a lot, especially for offering machine, because the machine is already gone. How can you actually uninstall software from it? That's why in Vim now, V11, they give you this flexible option. If the machine is not available, I can always remove it from the protection group. If they come back again, they will then reappear. And so this gives you some flexibility on managing your agent in new version. Okay. So when you prepare your protection group with agent software, if you are backing up Windows machine, especially for workstation like laptops and desktops, then we will have this additional support in the advanced feature that you can control, limiting the bandwidth used by the machine for backup, metered connection, VPN connection or Wi-Fi. You can also throttle the activity on the machine itself. If not, it might draw too much resources and eventually users start to complain about performance on the machine itself. Right? So this is one of the things additionally to Windows Agent. So after we have this protection group ready, then only we can create the backup job. So any question regarding protection group that you want to ask, okay, to clarify before we move on to the backup job options. Okay, I think no issue. Okay, so after your protection group is ready, machine with agent installed, etc., then we can now try to create the backup job. Okay, so the backup job will be selecting the machine with agent already pre-installed or the entire protection group that will apply to multiple machines underneath it. So first thing, when we create a backup job, we can choose to manage by backup server, which is one of the options here. Now, when you choose manage by backup server, meaning all your job configuration, your schedule will be controlled and managed on the backup server perspective. Meaning if your backup schedule kicks in, the backup server will be the one who initiates the backup. Talking to the agent, and then tell the agent which repository you are sending your backup to, for example. Okay, so this one thing. It's suitable for machine that is connected to the backup server 24/7. Okay, so failover cluster will be a must to use managed by backup server, backup job type. Server, on the other hand, is optional. You can choose this or the other option. Yeah, because if you have server running in a different remote site where the WAN link is not stable enough to maintain stable connectivity, then maybe utilizing another option will be a better idea. But for failover cluster, there is no options for the choose. Failover cluster, it will be using managed by backup server always in the job type. Okay. So over here, you will see managed by agent is another option that can be supported for server and also workstation. So managed by agent, whereby all the config will be pushed into the local agent to start, and the agent itself know when to perform the backup. So without the connectivity to your backup server, the backup job will still able to run. Okay? So this is all saved in the agent config locally. Okay? So from here, you will see different options here, do able to support different location for your backup data store, etc. Okay? So for your job type, it will also affect your UI installation usually. Now, Linux-based agent will always come with the UI software that you can bring up, perform some local operation, etc. Windows agent, if you select manage by backup server, they will disable the UI by default. Okay. If you choose manage by agent, the UI will be enabled by default together in your local agent machine. So you can bring up the UI to see what is the current configuration, etc. Even doing some manual operation to your machine to perform maybe manual backup, etc. Things like this. Okay. So this is a bit different here as compared to the managed by server and also Linux here. So agent backup with failover cluster. We do support failover cluster now in full in the agent backup that can also support SQL always on cluster from Microsoft. So if you are utilizing this technology, then we usually need to utilize agent backup just to fulfill the shared disk connectivity. Another one will be the Exchange DAG cluster. So the Exchange DAG cluster will have multiple nodes within the cluster that can help to actually load balance your Exchange workload. Now when we back up this kind of cluster, your add-on has a failover cluster product, and then Veeam will actually detect from the cluster underneath how many Exchange nodes are there. They will install agent into each of the nodes, and when they perform backup, they will perform it sequentially, so that each of the machine data will be protected individually to avoid any data loss issue, etc. Okay, so this will be fully supported starting from V10 already until now. So inside your backup job, after you selected managed by agent or managed by backup server, then next thing you need to select what content that you are planning to protect. So for workstation, desktop, laptop, or even server, maybe it's a good idea to protect the entire machine if you have no other unwanted data that you want to exclude, for example. Using the entire computer will be much more easier for you to back up everything instead. So if you have some additional selections of different data sets to be included, you can always choose the second or third option. So if you go for volume level, for example, if your machine comes with multiple drive, so there will be certain drive used for system or maybe business critical data that's used for production environment. Now there will be certain volume maybe used for only your testing data that you do not want to include into your backup because it will eat up more space and it just doesn't worth it. Then you can utilize volume level to select only the important volume or drive that you want to back up and exclude the other things instead. Now, if you are using volume level, this will be handy and easy. But if you say that you have only one or two disks inside your machine, and then you are utilizing folder to separate your data assets, then you might need to go with file level backup, which is slower because they will need to drill down to your entire machine to include or exclude the folder that you are not planning to backup, for example. So this will be a view from folder level backup, which they will include also by default your operating system and C drive. So for all other drive, you can now expand and then select only the data that you want, for example. Or you can utilize this exclusion settings to exclude whatever extension file that you're not planning to backup, which is another option for you. Okay, so this is the agent backup job mode. Now, for agent backup, what are the backup mode and method that we can choose? Reverse incremental, as you can see here, is not supported for agent job, so remember that. They do ask in the exam also, I do see this question before, if I'm not mistaken. Then for agent job, we can support forward incremental, which is by default enabled using synthetic full. If you plan to go with forever forward incremental, it is also supported by unchecking disable synthetic full and disable active full. Your agent backup will be forever forward incremental. Okay, so this saves you a lot of space, especially when you have multiple agents required to do a backup to the same repository location, for example. Okay. Then you have this application web processing, similar to your virtual machine backup. If you have application running on the agent machine that you want to prepare it for application consistency, we will by default utilize VSS, as you can see here. If your application or your OS is not Windows or VSS supported, then you might need to run some script similar to the virtual machine backup. So from here, when you click on application, they actually come with the same options as your virtual machine backup. Okay? So this is another option that you need to be careful with if you have some sensitive application running on the machine that you require to backup using agent, for example. Okay? Then you have the bare metal restore. So when you back up from a physical machine, you have options to restore to the same machine or different physical machine, what we call bare metal restore, which require the recovery media, a bootable ISO file for Windows or even Linux, as you can see earlier, to prepare your machine with at least network connectivity and some basic machine drivers available. So we see here creating the ISO file from the backup replication server. These are the two places. One is created from your backup server. I need to load additional driver during restore. After you put into the ISO file, you need to plug in a USB pen drive to load additional driver from it. If you create the particular ISO file, recovery media from the agent machine, then you can add in additional driver when you create the recovery media together. So this will give you some hint on where you can actually pull this recovery media out if you really need it for restoration. Okay, so it's quite flexible. Even if you do not have a driver, you can still load up later. Okay, so creating an agent backups, you can see here, Windows processes this in parallel. They do not require proxy server because they are using the agent to perform the backup. If you are utilizing storage integration for Windows, then it will require additional proxy for that. But for most of the agent backup, the agent itself is actually your proxy here. Okay? For agent jobs, we can also connect direct to Vim Cloud Connect Partner Repository. It's supported. Okay? So this will be covered tomorrow where we look into protecting data in the cloud, for example. Okay. So the backup from storage snapshot, as I mentioned, this is additional support integration for your Vim agent for Windows, for example. Okay. That you can add on from the advanced settings. You can see there's an integration button for to enable this storage snapshot support. And so this is similar to VMware integration, as you can see here. Advanced configuration required and is by default disabled. Yeah. So if you're utilizing SanDisk from the supported equipment, maybe you can think of adding in this to Vim to utilize the storage snapshot to do a backup. Okay, so this is the last option for agent backup. Any questions so far for agent backup capabilities? So you need to create a protection group, then a backup job, all things here in the lab.